Hello, and welcome to the Grand Cinema Hotel, a podcast hosted by three friends who love cinema. I am your host, Gus, and I'm joined by my two good friends, Nate and Alvaro. Tonight, you'll be enjoying our Halloween Spooktacular and staying in room 105, Last Night in Soho, the latest film from cheeky little bloke Edgar Wright. So go ahead, get comfortable, throw on that Do Not Disturb sign, and enjoy the show.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Welcome back, all you ghouls and goblins. It's Nate, and this is our Halloween Spooktacular. This is originally going to be a double feature. We watched Last Night in Soho and Antlers, but after seeing both movies, we decided just to make it about one. We had a lot more to say about Last Night in Soho than we did Antlers. Gus, you want to talk a little bit about that, or tell us what you thought about Last Night in Soho?
Yeah. Well, should I talk about Antlers first or Last Night in
Let's
Soho?
get Antlers out of the way.
Should we talk about why we're not going to do Antlers?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Well, hey guys, Gus here. Antlers was just like so disappointing. I know that we all really looked forward to that one a lot, right?
That was on my list for most anticipated movies of the year. Yeah.
It's just disappointing is the only word to really use. It just felt like so safe and boring. You know? It's not exactly what I was looking for. Maybe I just had a lot of expectations for the movie because that is one of those delayed movies from 2020. It didn't hit, dude.
It didn't.
It didn't. I don't really want to shit on it too hard.
No.
But, it just didn't hit, and I am sad that we're not doing the double feature.
I am too. I'm really sad about that.
What about you, Ro?
I didn't know that it got postponed until you just brought it up right now.
Yeah, I had seen the trailer in like 2019.
I know Nate was really excited for it, and I haven't done too much about like reading on the Wendigo. I thought that was really that's why I think I was really into it. The trailer, I thought the little scenes that it was showing, like the kills looked really good. I thought it was gonna be what I wanted for a Halloween film, like the body horror, the scares, and that's why we don't want to shit on it, obviously. But I think that's why it was so disappointing. There was a lot in the movie that could have been better, and I think there was just too much used up on a certain theme that didn't necessarily need to be there. Storyline, my bad, not theme. Yeah, that didn't need to be there, and I think that's what makes it not as good as we wanted it to be.
There was two different aspects that I really liked about Antlers that I wish they would have focused on more, and it was the boy, who the main character, like his home relationship and like what's going on at home, and then the actual creature itself, like all that stuff was pretty cool. That was hitting pretty hard, but they just chose to focus on this storyline between two characters who they don't really do too much for the story. They're kind of just an afterthought, really. Like, oh, well, I guess we have to have two other characters to see this story from the outside. But it just didn't hit. And I was really disappointed because me and you have seen the director's last movie. We watched it. It was Hostiles. You remember that one with Christian Bale? Have you seen Hostiles?
I've seen that. The Western is really good.
That's a really good movie. And I know he had also done... Oh, there's one with Christian Bale as well. I think it's called Into the Furnace. Have you seen that? But I know people had thought that this director was kind of like on a hot streak of his like recent work, and I know Guillermo del Toro produced it, and I feel like the Guillermo del Toro, you can feel his energy like with the monster and like the production side of the film, but I don't know. Maybe it would have been better obviously it probably would be better if Guillermo del Toro directed it.
I would think so. I mean, the creature design was so cool. It's honestly one of my favorite like horror creatures I've seen. It was really cool, but it just didn't hit. Like we said, if they would have focused on maybe the majority of the creature in a different storyline, it might have hit. But so that's why we decided to focus on Last Night in Soho. So we'll kind of switch gears and hop into that movie. Gus, what did you think about Last Night in Soho? What were your general opinions on it?
Many thoughts. A lot of good, some bad.
Overall, did you like the movie?
Yeah. There's no way I didn't like the movie. It's just that there's certain things in this movie that I don't know if Edgar Wright is necessarily the right director for this movie. Even though he wrote it with a co-writer, I kind of just feel like this wasn't like the right lane for him. And I'm glad that he's challenging himself still and doing movies that are like original and interesting and like throwbacks to what he wants to see in movies. I know that we were doing a little bit of research before the pod, and in this interview with him, he was saying that he wants to create movies that he misses seeing, right? Like that he feels like he's filling a gap. I do think this movie like hits a lot on like the things that he wants to see, but I just the ending's a little messy. Let's just put it that way. I'll stop right there. Go ahead, Ro.
No, I was just gonna ask you because we talked about it yesterday. Then this is a question for both of you, but you it's not the worst movie by him, right? You said you think Baby Driver is your least favorite.
I still do think that as of right now. I haven't seen Fistful of Dollars, which is his like his student or like indie film. It's a ripoff of not a ripoff, right? But it's like a parody of Clint Eastwood. I haven't seen that, which I'm sure that's the worst one just because it's his first.
I haven't seen that either.
He actually said in an interview doing a little more research that that's the one that he would recommend. Definitely don't start with that movie because they asked him what movie should we start with if no one has seen your films. He's like, well, definitely don't start with that one, but I wouldn't say that there is a certain start and end point between my movies. Yeah, Baby Driver was just not it for me. I felt like that movie was total style over substance, and I prefer style, obviously, but the substance has to be there.
Yeah. Baby Driver did lack in that, but
I was gonna ask something else, but I forgot. So you guys could continue on.
Do you think that the way the press has been treating Edgar Wright as of his last two movies, like I feel like someone who is like in the media's good graces has kind of fallen out of it very quickly?
well, I know what you're saying. It's interesting because like, you know, he had the Cornetto trilogy and then he did Scott Pilgrim. Those are all, I feel like, you know, revered by the public, especially
Four
Scott.
heaters in a row.
Yeah, especially, you know, Scott Pilgrim is one of those movies that I know people watch over and over and over.
I am a fan of Scott Pilgrim.
Technically an incredible film. And then you have so much personality with the Cornetto trilogies with Simon Pegg and everything. So then to totally switch gears and move from that kind of comedy, like almost lighthearted, but, you know, with severe consequences still, moving on to doing Baby Driver and this movie, which are a lot more style and a lot less substance, like you were saying. I guess I can see how the media would kind of, you know, look poorly upon that, but I appreciate, like we were talking about earlier, I appreciate his ability to do that, to go away from what has made him, you know, one of the media's favorite directors and kind of do his own thing and experiment with things.
He works in comedy, but it's genre also.
Exactly.
And with these last two films, it's not really comedy as much as it is like full genre filmmaking. Like the last one being a total action movie.
Total action.
And this one being a psychological thriller / horror.
And I think it's cool to see him move from, because I mean, after Baby Driver, I kind of expected him to maybe do some more of those kind of movies, like action heist, you know, movies, and then to do this, something completely different. I appreciate that.
I definitely appreciate that he's still willing to challenge himself and take on these like big movies like that, like Baby Driver just being like on a technical level. Obviously, it's impressive, even if you don't agree with the story. I think with Baby Driver, it has to do with something you mentioned to me before the pod, is that, and it kind of leans into this movie too, is just like, I don't know if love is really something he has a grasp on in movie making, right? Like his love interest or the... Yeah.
I mean, even in Scott Pilgrim, like the love interest, you know what I mean? Like,
the more time passes, the more problematic that movie really is, honestly. No? You don't got nothing to say, Ro?
No.
Oh, okay.
Nothing to say. Yeah.
I thought you were had a thought coming.
No, sorry.
I wanted to bring this up because I know we've kind of talked a little bit about, you know, the technical aspects of this movie. Something that I was reading that I did notice when we were seeing it, but it didn't really fully hit me, I guess, or I didn't, you know, put two and two together. But the first 25 minutes of this movie, the sound only comes out of the front speakers in the theater. And it's not until she first arrives, when she, you know, she goes back in the past to London, that the full surround sound kicks in.
To hit you from every
and
angle.
I think that's really cool.
You know, I kind of have bad hearing in my left ear, so I didn't even notice that. But I had seen signs about that, like certain AMCs and other theaters being like, this is on purpose, that the sound is only coming out of certain angles, and then 25 minutes into the movie is when it fully,
and it just blasts you with like the whole city of, you know, London in the 60s. Did you notice that, bro?
I just say before when I used to go watch movies at like a local theater and some stuff like that would happen, I'd always go, oh shit, like something must be broken or something. But we've seen both times that we went to go see this movie in Dolby Digital, and that's like the whole thing about how nice the sound is. And it's really easy to notice it in that theater because you could literally audibly not hear anything out of the back. And I was like, I noticed it last night when I watched it with Gus. I didn't notice it the first time though. And then I read it when I was looking on Twitter and other places that there was like a picture of some of the advisories they had put up on some of the theaters. So I only noticed it after reading that, actually.
I think that's a very cool thing as a director to do, you know, like how many directors really mess with sound, all that, you know.
Usually when you get a warning like that about a movie, it's about the like strobe
lights,
or
yeah.
that like this movie has intense visuals. Like if you're squeamish, maybe this isn't the right movie for you. But I've never seen that for sound before.
I haven't either, especially to do, you know 25 minutes of the movie to, you know, have that. But.
Before we like get into the movie and really start like dissecting things, I kind of just want to talk about like the technical aspect of this film too. I'm not going to say that it's more technical than Baby Driver, but this film being so practical and just like the set design and the production team behind it, just there's so much work that went into this movie that is why, even though I don't think the story is as good as it could have been, that just like the technical level really carries this movie for me because I can tell how hard they worked to make this movie look the way it did, and it is a stunning looking movie. It's absolutely beautiful. I don't feel like I've talked about a movie like this yet on the podcast.
No.
I feel this wow about the visuals, right? Like not even Dune.
No.
Not even Dune because they just hit completely different.
It's a different type of
it's more
like,
up my
visual.
alley, these types of visuals. One thing I had seen, and I wanted to get Ro's opinion on this, little photographer talk here, is that in one review I had seen that they were talking about the visuals. They said that they were expecting so much, and then like certain like lighting choices, they felt like it was like amateur, like when an amateur photographer or someone who just starts learning about lighting is like, what if I put a purple gel here and a green gel here? And, oh, isn't that so cool how it's two different colors? And there is a lot of sequences like that in this movie, but, and I don't want to say that the reviewers were being negative, but it was just something they had brought up that it felt a little more amateur than it should to just have like these color gels and playing with the light like that, or just kind of doing it for no reason other than it to look cool. Which, I mean, why does anyone make any visual choice, right? It's because it looks cool.
That was going to be my answer. It's like, there is scenes where that's obviously what he does. He plays with the gels. There is no reason I think that it has to be there, but
other than visual flair, panache.
Yeah, because we'll talk about it later. Because it's not just all of that though. There is definitely different effects that he does that like I'm like this is what makes his style really cool. And I guess it's amateur. It's hard to do because like I recently started with the photography doing stuff like that. Like, and obviously I just started doing it. So that's like, oh, what if I do green here and blue? But I would say there's a reason why you hit a certain like time when you start doing that stuff and you're like, I'm going to try this.
Pre-pod, I was talking to Nate about this point. We just, we like to run stuff by each other, kind of like talking points that we're going to have. And I was telling him that, and I know I've had this conversation with you for many years about lighting in movies now, about how it's pretty just, it's kind of like an afterthought to like, I feel in most movies that the lighting is just either poorly done where you can hardly see anything or just plain boring, to be honest. Like that was one of the things in Antlers. I understand that it takes place in Oregon, but for it to just have that like boring gray color palette that so many movies have, it's like, what are you trying to do with that? Just like give us a sense of dread. Like everything is great.
It honestly reminds me of Twilight.
Yeah.
Like that weird filter over everything.
Yes. Imagine the Twilight filter, but on a lot of movies have that
filter. It's super unoriginal. There's so many other things that you can do.
Yeah, and then you have movies like Dune and like Eternals that are out right now, and those are like the biggest movies, right? And what are the two main colors in those movies? Brown and gray.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what I was talking to Nate about was that even if something like Edgar Wright using the different color gels would be considered amateur, are we as a movie-going audience so deprived of good lighting in movies that when we see something as basic as two gels, we're like, whoa!
Yeah, and it might be. I mean, I think it's interesting that you bring that up because a lot of like before when it was studios making movies back in the 50s, there's a whole
or even the 40s, the black and white movies have crazy lighting as well.
The 3-point lighting system, right?
Yeah.
Where they always talk about it's night, but they still make it like there's a lot of light, so they make you think it's moonlight, but it's like. I think I would rather prefer that. I know it looks fake or whatever, but there's a lot of movies. Exactly. Like we're sitting here, we know they are, but like sometimes I would rather prefer that 3-pointing lighting system where it's like light coming from behind her, so there's like an aura, as opposed to what you're saying, because it just makes it look very mundane. And if the story doesn't call for like that type of mundane mood, because that's why Dune works, is that it makes sense that like they're in this planet, the desert, but
Yeah,
the fact that like the Eternals, like you could have made this anywhere, and you choose to make it somewhere where the colors are like brown and gray.
Yeah, gray sky, brown beach,
And it's
dark
I don't
blue
know.
water.
Everybody's muted.
To have the
Everybody's
ability
muted.
to have an IMAX camera to capture this crazy stuff and to just sit on that, be like, I'm gonna just go with these safe colors, seems a little unambitious. So I could agree with you.
That's a good word. I like the ambitiousness of this movie. And for Edgar Wright, I had told Nate that I, as a mainstream director, not a legend and not an upcoming indie director like the ones we talk about, but just in the mainstream, I think Edgar Wright is one of the best working filmmakers today of making big movies that are enjoyable for vast audiences. I love Edgar Wright, to be honest.
I mean, he's a director that I can honestly say that I've enjoyed all of his films.
Yes.
Love some of them and have enjoyed all of them.
Even Baby Driver and this movie, they're not my favorites. I don't think they hold a candle to the other four, but they're still so much better than a majority of what's coming out today.
And all of them I think deserve multiple viewings of them too, you know. So
maybe Wes Anderson and Edgar Wright. To me, they are like the best working American. Well, Edgar Wright's not American, but Western mainstream filmmakers, I would say.
And I think that might tie back to what you were saying, that maybe that Edgar Wright is warranted what people expect from him because of what we're talking about. Like every movie that he makes, even so far, even till now, people know that you made it, so I expect something from it, and it's based off of the three that you guys were talking about and Scott Pilgrim, and that's why. It's because he's warranted that expecting good from him, and he hasn't. I guess in a way he's disappointed some because they're expecting more, but to me that doesn't make it bad.
Yeah, it's definitely not bad that people are expecting a lot out of you.
no, because I mean, this movie, like, there are some things that they could have done writing wise, story wise, that I think could have made this a very good, like a really good movie.
Yeah.
You know?
Yes.
But even with the way that they went and how they told the story, I still really like it, you know? Like, I still really enjoyed the movie. And it's a very fun movie. And to have it released when it was released, like right before Halloween right now, it's a perfect movie to go see, I think. To go, even like, everybody can appreciate it, you know?
Yeah. There's something to love about it on every end, I would say.
I think just a little thought that came to me is like, this movie is what they like execs or studios would have wished the original Suicide Squad felt like. Like, that's what I feel walking out of this movie. Like, they wanted this to be the base. Like, I hope people at least like it as much as this, or I hope it's at least as good as this visually. And that's how I know that, like, I like Edgar Wright too, because a lot of people, this is their best work. Something, be able to do something like this is their best, or like this is what we're attempting to do. But
If this was someone's first or second film, or they weren't Edgar Wright, I think we'd be giving him a way bigger pass on this.
exactly.
But like I said, I'm not going to apologize for holding Edgar Wright to like one of the highest standards in movie making today. Another thing I really like about this movie, like with the technical aspect, is just how much you can tell Edgar Wright loves the movies that he's referencing. You know, like there's a lot of like giallo stuff in here and like those 60s movies. Even like, I know he had referenced stuff like Psycho and like Blood and Black Lace and Black Narcissus and Deep Red and Inferno, and just all of these movies that he like loves. And yeah, like the whole, I want to make my own version of a movie like that. And that's really, brave is a weird word to use about movie makers, but I think it's brave to like try to bring back a genre, because this genre doesn't really, I know it's a psychological thriller, but this subgenre of that genre doesn't really exist anymore.
And maybe it's because, like you said, we do some photography, and like that's why I like stuff like that. Where like we've talked about the original Suspiria, that a lot of it is like there'll be random colors for no reason.
Oh yeah, I just told Nate.
We were talking about that.
I was literally telling Nate that like in Suspiria, one of the first scenes when I think her name's Jessica in the movie, when she is like just in a taxi going to the school for the first time. It's like a rainy night and she's in a dark taxi, but the rear window behind her has like purple and orange and red like flashing. Makes no logical sense whatsoever, except for the fact that it just looks fucking cool.
Yeah.
And like you said, that's why, bouncing back to the research that you guys did before doing this, and I saw you guys were watching some of his interviews, that he wants to make something that what he used to watch and something they don't make anymore. And maybe some people just visually need a reason why there's all these colors and stuff. But to me, as long as it's not the whole movie, I like the little touch of it. Personally.
I'm a sucker for red lighting.
Yeah,
movies.
like
the red is very ominous, gives off that vibe that you're looking for of danger.
because the movie that I think of when I think of this is like the experimenting with just total random colors and like just different things was Mandy.
yeah,
Right.
And when that movie came out, it blew me away because there hadn't been anything like that. I mean, since then you've had like Color Out of Space, like we were talking about earlier. That kind of, I mean, that's played into the actual story, so that's there for a reason. But yeah, I don't know. You don't get really those color plays anymore. So
I want to talk about the '60s stuff versus like the modern stuff. This movie was shot on location in Soho, which was like really, really difficult because I had learned that in Soho nothing closes even on Sundays. So like it's constantly just moving. So like that aspect of how they were going to get it to work on a practical level was very difficult. And then like for the '60s stuff, to have to take out all the signs, redo the way the floor looks, have the cars, have the clothes, try not to get people walking by who are on the other side of the street. That it was just like, he said, Edgar Wright had said every day he'd come in and was like, I don't know if we're going to be able to do this, honestly. Like, this is like practically really difficult what we're doing here. And I love that because like that, even though it's a big budget movie, it feels like guerrilla filmmaking. You know what I mean? Like, we're in the street, we're getting the shot.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter.
that's
And
daunting.
it works so much more with the modern stuff because that's like free extras and free signs and all that. You don't have to worry about the surrounding location. But just the difficulty of pulling off that 60s stuff, just bravo.
yeah, that's impressive. I didn't even think about that. That is impressive.
Yeah, I mean, there is obviously some sets and stuff like that, but a lot of the places that they go to are like real places.
And
Like, there's a bar called the Toucan.
Yeah.
The Toucan. That's like a real place that they showed. I was like, oh wow,
That's cool.
really
Let's
cool.
go. Yeah.
Yeah, if I ever go to Soho, catch me at the Toucan.
That's like, I mean, because there's scenes that where the main character is sprinting through the whole city, so that even adds on top of it,
Yeah, I feel like you really start to get a sense for like the geography of the city once you. I know we're not the biggest fans of the middle of this movie, but I kind of feel like I could probably get around now after
It
how much
was
I've
cool.
seen.
I will say one of the funny things I read was don't know if the person liked it or disliked it, but they're like, I'm supposed to believe somebody who just came from Cornwall knows exactly where to run in Soho.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. You guys want to talk about the cast?
Yeah, let's talk about
I
that.
think the cast was fantastic. We're starting with, I know Anya Taylor-Joy is kind of sells the movie like to pull people in, but Thomasin McKenzie is the star of this movie. I think she gives like an extremely powerful performance. This is kind of a nitpick, but like I don't know if it's just the way her voice is, but she has this like baby doll innocence to her voice that she plays such a vulnerable character that like halfway through the movie you're like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Like I get it. You're vulnerable. You're soft. You're not used to this. But it's still a really powerful performance. And she really carries the weight of this movie on her shoulders.
It's kind of sidebar from the cast, but what you're saying, like you're like, okay, I get it. I felt like the movie was like that with a lot of its themes.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we'll get back to
We'll
that.
talk to
Yeah.
that, but I feel you on that. But no, Thomasin McKenzie did a really good job.
I'm sure you guys have seen her in some other stuff, right?
Yeah.
I seen her last in Old, which was
I have not seen what.
Neither have I.
What else was she in?
she's in Old, and she was in Jojo Rabbit.
That's
which
right.
you guys would have seen.
Jojo Rabbit, and she was in The King, right?
She's in The King with Timothy Chalamet, and she's in the upcoming film by Jane Campion, The Power of the Dog. which
Very
I know
excited.
I know we're gonna talk about that movie when it comes out. I know that was probably one of Nate's most anticipated movies of the year.
Love me a Western.
Loves them a Western. Yeah, she's a really good actress, and I thought she did a great job of just portraying this character. I know Edgar Wright said that she's kind of like a vehicle for like himself, like putting himself in the movie because he's obsessed and loves 60s culture the way this character does. And just the whole like learning that maybe don't glamorize the past, like it's not always what you think it is, and this character's kind of in for like a rude awakening when she gets to London.
Yeah.
She plays the character she plays. Thomasin McKenzie plays is named Eloise or Ellie, and a cool little thing that you learn about that is that like that's like the name of a song, and that's just going back to the whole like being influenced by the 60s. It's like no shit, you're even named after like a 60s song.
For real.
Another cool thing I learned about like like the actors and stuff was that the I didn't write her name down, and I probably should have. I just didn't feel like she had that vital of a role. Was Eloise's grandmother?
Oh yeah, her name was Peggy. Oh no, the actress's name was Rita Tershingham. I'm sorry. She played Peggy, her grandmother.
I know that she's like casting her was kind of like an homage to like 60s television and films because she's a big star.
Okay.
She was a big star in Britain.
Right.
I kind of lost my train of thought on that. But that she lives with her grandmother.
Yeah, she lives with her grandmother, and do we want to give spoilers?
I don't know. Let's tread with caution.
She lives with their grandmother in
Cornwall.
In Cornwall, and Ellie, she experiences things that most people don't. Her grandmother is aware, and that kind of sets the stage.
She doesn't have parents. So we're dealing with like the loss of parents in this movie and like how that can affect a character. So she's like an aspiring fashion designer.
Mm-hmm.
She loves the 60s. She gets accepted to a university. I think it's like the London College of Arts or something like that.
Which is something that happened to her mom as well.
Oh yeah, her mom. She's kind of following in her mom's footsteps, and I know the grandma's very worried about her. And then she thinks she's gonna be fine, but later on we learn that like, London can be a very scary place, especially to outsiders who are not used to this lifestyle. And that's just gonna play into like what this movie's really about once we get into it. Before we move on and start talking about Anya Taylor-Joy, anything left you guys have to say about Thomasin McKenzie's performance?
I don't think so. No.
Mm-mm.
Okay. I will say it was a powerful performance. I hope she gets some kind of acclaim or some nomination here or there, maybe for like Best Young Actress or something like that. Anya Taylor-Joy, 20 out of 10 every time.
As always.
She's one of the best working actors today, honestly. She just knows how to carry herself with like this. I really do. Sorry, I know I'm like going mid-thought, but Anya Taylor-Joy really pulls off that like believable movie star attitude.
She has such a confidence about her. It's crazy. Like, I don't know. And it was really on display, especially in the first parts of this film. Her confidence was just off the charts.
3 straight males, we think she's a really good actor.
From The Witch, Split, Glass. She's going to be in The Northman. She's going to be in Nosferatu.
The
Northman reference.
Yeah.
We're going to keep bringing that
What is
movie
that,
up.
4?
That's probably going to be the most anticipated movie of 2022. I'm letting you know right now. Oh, God. I wish we were doing the Northman episode right now.
It'll come sooner than later, that's for sure.
Anyway, so Anya Taylor-Joy, she plays a young woman from the 60s named Sandy, who is an aspiring pop star, singer, performer. And it gives off the impression that she's like new to London, right? That this is probably her first time in the area as well. And her story very much is like mirroring, which is one of the themes in this movie, like Eloise's story of being someone who moves to London, has big dreams, and it isn't always what it seems. She goes to meet. Well, she wants to meet like club owners and things like that to try to like start her career as a singer. And she comes across a guy named Jack, who's a club manager. That's Matt Smith. We'll talk about him probably a little bit later. They kind of have like a budding romance in the beginning. He promises to help further her career. And then with this movie, a lot of it is going to be, it's not what it seems. And like pretty much every character in this movie they're not what they seem by the end. Yeah. How did you guys feel about Anya Taylor-Joy in this movie?
I mean, I like we were saying, I think that she killed it. She did a really good job. There's a progression of her character throughout the movie, obviously. And I don't know. I just think she did a really good job.
It's kind of hard to talk about because I just think Anya Taylor-Joy is that good. Like, there's not really much to say other than that. Is like she's good. She's good in everything. She's good in The Queen's Gambit. She's good in Split. She was good in The Witch. I really do think she's probably the best like female actor working today. No one else really holds a candle to her. To me,
I would agree.
Of her class, I'm not gonna say of like older legends and stuff like that, but of like the 25 and under, Anya Taylor-Joy is just fucking killing it. Put her in everything. No, anybody else got any other thoughts?
I would agree with you.
I had more thoughts on Matt Smith just because I wanted to ask you guys if you guys seen him in anything else.
I have not watched Doctor Who. I know that he was in Doctor Who for a good while. I think multiple seasons of it when I was looking it up. What I have seen him in is this like horror thriller movie that came out last year called His House. I don't know if you guys had seen that. He plays a very small role in that movie. It's not even guest star. Like, I think he's probably in like 2 or 3 scenes. I haven't really seen him in much, to be honest, but he gave us a strong villainous performance, I would say. He's really chewing up the scenery in this movie. Just like your typical 60s playboy type of guy. He's a shaker and a mover. He's got these ideas of helping Anya Taylor-Joy in her career, but we come to see he's not what he seems, just like we're talking about with this movie. But I thought he gave a really good performance.
Yeah, I thought he served his purpose pretty well. I mean, he's a big stature. Like, he seems like he's a pretty big guy. And yeah, he was menacing when he had to be. I thought he did a good job.
Yeah, and in the beginning too, before we get this like turn from him, I feel like he really does give off. Like, I could see how he's charming and able to help, or not able to help. That's a really, I don't know why I came
through in the beginning. Did you think that he was gonna like help her and everything, or did you think that he was acting like that?
I mean, I knew he had just bad intentions.
Yeah,
because everybody in this movie kind of has bad intentions, but I wasn't expecting the turn to be so quick.
Yeah,
that's what I would say about that.
And that's the thing I think about this movie is that turn was quick. What we're talking about, like, I don't know.
We'll get into it. Let's finish with the cast. Okay, we'll kind of go through this kind of fast. We have Terrence Stamp, who played the name description is so funny.
He's the butler from the Haunted Mansion.
He was also Chancellor Valorum in Episode 1 of Star Wars. He was in Elektra. He was in Get Smart. And yes, we're choosing to only name the bad movies he's been in because I think that's hilarious.
Hey, Get Smart wasn't bad,
but he is like a legendary like 60s British actor, and now it's just like, having him be in the movie is kind of a reference within a reference. Mm-hmm. But
I think it's cool that they did that, because I feel like I didn't know that the grandma in this movie, her Nan, was an old British actress. So I think that's cool that they kind of used 2 different people that. And
then finishing this like trilogy of older British actors, we have Diana Riggs, who you probably know her best from Game of Thrones.
Lady Olenna.
Tyrell.
Oh, Tyrell. Yeah, that's right. That's
she's
right.
If you've seen What Happens to Joffrey, it was this lady's fault.
I want to make a quick little thing. You were talking about Rena Tushingham, and this is just really funny because she's in Dr. Zhivago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and you know what I'm referencing, and
Dr. Zhivago,
because that's one of the So I just thought it's funny because I didn't know that she actually was like revered as a good actress before, and I'm looking at the movie she was in right now, and like Dr. Zhivago seems to be the movie that a lot of people know her from. Yeah. She was in a lot of movies, but I just thought it was really funny. Dr. Zhivago always reminds me of that video.
Yeah. It's always funny when you see something from the internet that you don't understand really, as other than a joke, and then you get the reference for it later. You're like, oh, that's what they're talking about. And that's just funny with Dr. Zhivago. So we have Diana Riggs. This is actually her last role. R.I.P. She passed away. Rest in peace. After this.
Did you notice that opening the film they had something that said "For Diana"?
Yeah. I didn't know that beforehand.
I didn't either. I didn't know who that was. But
it's a good last performance, I'll say that.
Yeah, she did a good job. Yeah. Very crucial to the story.
R.I.P.
Rest in peace.
And then the last guy I would really want to bring up is
Michael.
Apologize, if I say this wrong. I think it's Michael Ajao. He plays a character named John, who like when Eloise moves to the city, he's really the only nice person to her in like the entire movie, other than her grandma, really.
Yeah.
I don't really want to get too much into him yet. I know him from Attack the Block, which Edgar Wright produced. I know I've recommended you guys watch that movie. We should definitely watch that soon. I just thought he gave a really good performance, and I kind of thought his character was treated unfairly towards the end. I don't want to talk about it yet, but he really got the short end of the stick in this movie. I kind of felt like he deserved more for what he was putting in.
He definitely did. That is something. Is he could have been a little more integral to some things, I think, but he gave a great performance, and I liked him in it.
I'd like to see him in some more things because I know that he hasn't been in that much. But
he's a true gentleman in this movie for sure.
Yeah, which you hardly see in movies, honestly, nowadays. Yeah, for real. So it was nice to see an honest gentleman in a film.
It's like one of the things that you had said, just comparing it to other movies, that usually when there's a character that's having issues like Eloise is having in this film, that usually everybody around her kind of just falls.
You're crazy.
Yeah. And in this movie, he seems to be one of the characters.
He attempts to understand her,
like a real person. Be like, okay, well, And he says a couple lines like, "Oh, my grandma believes in weird." He says weird shit too.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I like him so much more, is that character usually isn't around for these type of movies. And like you said, I think that bounces back as to why we think he deserves better at the end.
Or a character like him would usually just, the whole like gentleman aspect of him would just be a ploy to get something else. But no, like true gentleman. I don't really have anything other to say than that was kind of wholesome and nice to see a character like that in a movie.
I did really like that, and I liked Edgar Wright's choice to put a character like that in the movie because, you know, like you just said, you usually don't have that in a movie. Usually everybody's just like, oh, you know, something's happening, you're crazy. But no, I thought he did a good job.
And straight from the get go too, because like the first scene that he comes out in, she's having issues carrying her luggage up the stairs, and he wants to help her. And she's already kind of really reserved about it.
I think it's kind of cool that he has this character being such like an honest gentleman type of dude, is because it's referencing like all these old films, right? And in an older film, that wouldn't be anything crazy for a guy to offer to help a girl. Exactly. You know what I mean? And now it's kind of like, whoa, I'm not even used to seeing that. That's pretty random. But just going back, like referencing an older time period, I know he doesn't really ever give off the indication that he was like obsessed with the past the same way Eloise is, but just for him to be like a gentleman kind of is like a dated idea, I would say. And it's just overall nice. I don't really have I know I keep saying the same thing, but I'm just honestly surprised to see a character like him in a movie nowadays.
It was good to see a movie defeat that trope. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let's move on now to like the themes and ideas of this movie. And I think it's cool that you brought this up, is like this movie is probably some of the bad stuff about this movie is that it's so heavy-handed, right, with what it's trying to say.
It is. The writing was not very cryptic at all. Like the main point of this movie seems to be that, you know, men are bad, you know, men are bad and they're pigs and stay away. And that the other main theme being that nostalgia is very dangerous and nostalgia has a dark side. And I think it's cool that we get that. There's more reveal down the line of when Eloise goes back to the past, and we see with Anya Taylor-Joy's character the nostalgia of like, oh, you know, I love the 60s and Eloise is so obsessed with the 60s, but, you know, is the 60s really such this great place? No, like, is any time period really this great, perfect place?
No, it never is.
No.
I seen a hilarious tweet that I think I showed you guys. It was, I know I had told Nate about this, but someone on Twitter was like, Edgar Wright dare suggest that the 60s was maybe bad?
Yeah, exactly. And so you have that side of the whole nostalgia thing that, you know, this time period or, you know, whatever that you're romanticizing, it's not all perfect, you know, the whole don't meet your heroes, don't, you know, that kind of whole thing. Yeah. And then you also have the way that nostalgia plays into it, or how I took it, because Eloise is super obsessed with the 60s, and we can see as soon as she gets to, you know, her art institute that kind of sets a rift between her and the girls. I mean, those girls are overly bitchy in the movie just for, I feel like, film standards.
That was
you know,
very heavy-handed too.
Exactly.
Just them being so like bitchy.
But then what I got from it is like, you know, she's from a small town. She's obsessed with this time period, and everybody's kind of living in the here and the now, and that separated her from people. So like her love, like an obsession with her nostalgia, basically. So I don't know. I think it kind of plays on the whole nostalgia is dark on two different things, which I liked. But I think that it could have been written a little bit better and not been so hit you over the head with it, I guess.
Yeah, this isn't the first movie about being haunted by the past, but this was the first movie I have seen that's so like heavy-handed with the idea of like being haunted by nostalgia.
Yeah, it was interesting.
Right?
I thought I liked that about it.
Yeah, that's cool.
But yeah, I don't know. I just think that he could have, I don't know.
If you don't know anything about this movie or you somehow haven't seen any trailers, it's considered a psychological thriller with thriller/horror, because it does have a lot of horror elements to it.
Yeah, which I felt were weak. So I would consider it more of a thriller, I guess.
I would say the strongest aspect of this movie is the psychological stuff of the what is real, what is not real. Is this a dream? Is this reality?
Exactly.
Not being I know the co-writer Christy Wilson Carnes. She helped co-write 1917. I don't know if you've seen it.
I haven't seen it yet.
I have not seen that. I've kind of been avoiding that movie.
Was it? That's the one
That's
take
the one
movie.
shot. Roger Deakins.
Was it really a one shot, or they edited it?
I mean, of course it wasn't.
Okay,
right?
that's what everybody says, man. I wasn't sure.
Technically 3 shots. I looked into it.
Oh, it was only 3 shots. That's
Okay.
pretty impressive.
It was still really impressive.
That's impressive.
But she helped co-write that movie. She helped co-write this one. Sorry. Oh, I got a little lost there. Wow. What was I even trying? Oh, okay. Sorry. Here we go. This movie just has me thinking a lot of different things. And I know I saw it last night, but it's just not sticking with me the same way some other movies we had seen.
I feel it. I saw it on Wednesday, so I feel you.
Yeah, definitely. But what I was trying to say is that the co-writer, she was saying with psychological thrillers, you obviously have to have the thrills, but the psychological stuff with your characters has to be like the through point and what carries the movie. And as we were saying, like Thomasin and McKenzie having such a strong performance, I do think that psychological stuff is what carries this movie.
I would agree. That's why I would like, Ro, do you wish that they would have like expanded more upon that? Like the whole, is this a dream? Is this girl crazy? Is she going back in time? Like, do you wish they would have expanded more on that? Or are you kind of happy that they left it vague?
Well, I think a little bit more would have been better to clear some things up, because there's just some certain spots that meshes to me where I'm confused. And we talked about it before. Is this time travel? It just have to do, without doing too many spoilers, something that her mom seemed to have like connects both of them, or is it just she's so in love with this nostalgia that her dreams is her only escape, and that's where she can live through them, and then like they actually become like real in the real world when she goes to Soho. We don't get any like, it's not like the movie starts and she's in a dream and it's like, oh, she gets these dreams in Cornwall too. We just get the dreams as soon as she gets to Soho. So to me, it's like there's only one little indication that she sees stuff like this before she gets to her destination. So I think there's some stuff in there where I think I'm fine with how it's explained, but I'm not sure. And I think in a movie of this magnitude, or from Edgar Wright, I don't think that's something that's okay. I should know the answer to it, because it doesn't really leave that many questions in any of his other movies. Maybe Baby Driver we were talking about, but I do wish they would have talked to maybe one scene more, or like a couple more scenes is all that it needed to expand more on like, well, what exactly is going on here. But I do think we do get examples and some, because I wanted to say when you guys were talking, like her grandma warns her from the get-go, like, I want you to know that London is not what you think it is. And her grandma knows that she lives in nostalgia. Her room in Cornwall has an Audrey Hepburn, like she's always playing records.
So it's a creepy room. It's a little too obsessed.
It's a lot.
No.
That's what I think about when people kind of judge it as it's just really funny that I'm going to bring this up, but like White Rabbit with The Matrix. Like, it's too on the nose. It's too, I get it. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
That it's almost very student, what do they say, like a student of film, like when you're in school. Like, when you're first learning, I was like, well, I'm going to use White Rabbit to talk about a very Alice in Wonderland story. And it's like, oh my God. Like, there's it could be deeper than that. We're not that dumb. Like, come on, give the audience a little bit more credit. So I did think like, and it sets the tone of how obsessed she is. I get it. That's why I give it a pass in this, because she's obsessed. Obviously, we're in present time, and we're talking about an era that's at this
60
point.
60 years ago almost.
Yeah,
the 60s is almost 60 years ago.
And so to like, obviously, and I think that's what the whole movie has to do about. She's very entrenched with like, there were gentlemen, and this is right before the hippie movement, and England was really like the center of the universe at this time.
At one point, she calls it, like the center of the world. Like Soho was the center of the world.
She's like, it must have. She tells. She tells Miss Collins that. She tells like, it must have been amazing to be here during
She
that
says,
time.
if I could live in any time period, I would live in Soho in the 60s. Okay, sure.
So maybe that's why it's saying that, because she's so obsessed, that's why she is having these visions. Like, she's the only one. But I don't know. Like I said, I would have rather had I
think it's messy.
It is definitely messy. And like, for a film to start off so good, like to really like the first 30 minutes, like the first act, I thought was phenomenal. Mm-hmm. Right. And I've seen a lot of people online talk about how they don't like the third act of the film. Yeah. Like, and I know you were kind of talking about that. And I definitely think that it does get messy towards the third act, but I didn't like the middle. Like, there was a lot of repetition, I think, throughout the movie, which and once again, it's like we were talking about, even the themes, like everything was just kind of hitting you over the head. So for something like that, but I thought the first act was so strong. The first time when she goes back to London, it's an incredible scene.
Yeah. since it's like such a visually beautiful scene, I wanted to bring up the cinematographer. Oh man, the payoff of who this cinematographer is. I can't believe it is who it is just because of the inside joke we have about the movie Old Boy.
Yeah.
Is that the cinematographer, his name's Chung Hoon Chung, that he did this movie. He's done It from 2017, the first half.
I didn't know that.
He did The Handmaiden, another famous movie. And then just him doing Old Boy is just, it's so funny.
It is
like
super
that.
funny. And that's
If you're
so
listening,
random to
please
me.
watch Old Boy.
Yeah, the original, not the 2013 Josh Brolin cut.
Yeah, so the way that him and Edgar Wright in unison are able to portray the 60s, they do make it look like it was like the most magical
it looked
place
awesome,
that it
yeah.
could possibly like be. Oh, that scene is so good.
It's so
you really
good.
do feel like how Eloise feels about the 60s.
You're just so in awe, like, and everything's just moving around you, and it's so cool.
I will say that that's what I ended up liking about the movie. Is I was reading that a lot of us, doesn't matter where you're from, there seems to be like a problem with like, not problem, but a lot of people glamorize like
Big cities.
no, the past. Nostalgia is an issue that a lot of people tend to like, oh, I was wrong, I was born in the wrong era. I've heard that a lot, and I like
You
that
definitely weren't.
this movie, yeah, I like
I'm
that
an
this-
old soul.
Yeah.
Yeah, that whole thing.
I like that this movie that's like what becomes one of the issues is that it looks, this gentleman, I noticed one of the things that I noticed was a lot of people almost get ran over in this movie.
Yeah,
that is
that's true.
That's a weird proof
forgot
point
about
in this
that.
movie.
And so she almost always gets ran over in present time, but whenever she's walking in the past,
Yeah.
the cars always stop because she's a beautiful lady, so we stop, right? It doesn't matter if that's not a cross sign, she's walking, we
Yeah, I
stop.
never even thought about that.
I did not pick up on that.
And I like that. Yeah, that's what it looks like. Or these guys are wearing suits, and up until one point it reveals to you, but like, oh, but this is actually, I guess I wouldn't. It is. It's like a whorehouse at one point. Like, and it doesn't. You don't think that it's gonna be that up until it shows it to you, and then you notice like, oh, these guys are just wearing suits, but they're assholes.
scumbags.
Every single guy in here is a scumbag. Every single guy here, they're just trying to pick up on these women.
So the other heavy-handed theme in this movie is like the abuse of women by powerful men, which is very relevant to today, obviously. But just go, with the whole like, don't glamorize certain times because this is just something that's been happening forever. And like even going back to that time and thinking, like the 60s wasn't like this. Like, no, it was probably 10 times worse than this, honestly. The thing that Alvaro's talking about is, we kind of have to give this part away of the movie is that with Anya Taylor-Joy's character, Sandy, the 60s singer, with her relationship with Matt Smith, that she's trying to become a pop star and he's trying to turn her into a prostitute essentially. And she's obviously not down for this. I mean, who would be if you think that you're trying to become a singer?
Exactly.
Right? And just this whole idea of like, this is what you have to do to move up in the world. Just like super relevant to today and also very heavy handed. What the hell? This episode really is haunted, guys. The door just opened on its own.
Oh my God.
Sorry to break the fourth wall here.
That scared me. That's funny.
Jeez. What the heck? Closed doors much?
Oh man.
Okay. Anyways, now that ghost is gone,
Yeah.
one of our happy haunts. That was weird. Sorry, guys. That never
Ro,
happened.
we were talking about. I was saying how I wasn't the biggest fan of the middle of the movie, but like I said, I've been reading that a lot of people hated the ending of it. How did you feel about it?
I think so. Just to give the audience a little bit of insight, we weren't able to all three of us watch this movie together. So first I watched it with Nate, and then I watched it with Gus. But the first time I watched it was with Nate, and I walked out, and I remember I told you I liked the beginning, and we both agreed. But the first thing I told you I should say is that I was like, the ending really saved this movie for me, because at first I thought it was during the middle, I was gonna say I thought it was going very predictable, like, and that's why I thought the middle was dragging on. But to hear other people say that the ending was like what killed it for them, I don't know. I think to me that's what's like saved it.
I thought so too. I liked the ending. I mean, I didn't think it was the best ending ever, and it wasn't like I was like revered, but you know what I mean. But I mean, I liked it. I thought that there was a part, like you said, going through the middle of the movie where it was steering you in one direction, and it was so obvious. I was really hoping that wasn't going to happen, and it didn't end up happening. So I was very thankful by that. But yeah, I don't know. What did you think about that, Gus?
The ending, okay, with this whole movie, I feel like, but it's visually so cool.
Exactly.
Right? And the ending is arguably the best, like, trippy visual scene in the movie. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like this movie kind of fumbles at the end and kind of loses sight of what it was trying to be. Without getting into spoilers, there's so many plot holes in this movie that, like, halfway through, you're kind of like, okay, well, I guess I'm willing to give this a pass once I see how it ends, like, if it made sense for these plot holes to even exist, and like, maybe he's gonna plug it back in and then they're not gonna be plot holes. But I feel like I left with more questions than answers, and not in the good way, not like thought-provoking, not in the thought-provoking way, which we love, which is why we do something like this, but in the way of like, no, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
and
I
like,
agree with that.
What let's just, without giving a spoiler away about like characters and what is really happening, just this ability that the character Eloise has no longer makes sense once the twist is revealed at the end.
And it doesn't make sense in multiple ways. Like, there's so many different things that keep happening that you're like, well, that's not explained. That doesn't really make sense. That contradicts this.
And it's easy to say that, it's supposed to be a trippy psychedelic movie, so there might be some stuff that doesn't make sense. But I don't know about
there's a point where that would be a cop-out, and that would be this movie.
Yeah.
Because there's something that Gus and me talked about yesterday, and Nate, and I want to ask you about it, because we were confused in a certain scene, and I don't think this is giving away too much, but she ends up talking to the police, and obviously the police think she's crazy. Well, at least one of them thinks she's really crazy, and there's a really funny scene of him talking later, like where she's just shitting on her in the men's bathroom. But they ask her if like somebody gave her a drug or something, and she has like a flashback to when the really mean girl, I don't even care about
Jocasta.
I don't really.
Evil Jocasta.
She's like the worst out of all the movies we've reviewed so far, honestly. And that's like considering the Baron, and like I think she's the worst fucking character.
You're worse than a planetary baron who enslaves thousands of people.
What a hater.
On a personal level, for sure.
No, but she really was hater of the year.
Yeah.
So what I was gonna say though is that it flashes back to when she gives them a drink at the club, and so it makes it seem like she doesn't want to get her in trouble. So she says no. But do you think at any point that could be also a thing that she was drugged in some way? And the reason I said no was because John, right?
His name's John. Yeah.
John doesn't have any effect. So if they were both drugged, wouldn't they kind of both be?
This is I saw people talking about this online too. And what I personally think is, so they say, do you think that you could have been drugged? And even they have a flashback and the camera zooms in on the drink, right? And so it really makes you think like, was there something in there? Yeah. But then after that, she says, no, these things have been happening to me have been happening since before that. So I think that was a movie just kind of writing that off, and I don't think that she was drugged, but exactly what the fuck was the point of having the flashback zooming in on the cup? And I don't know.
So many like plot holes like that where it's like, okay, story-wise, it makes sense that this character Jocasta would do this to Eloise and John because she's a jealous fucking hater throughout the entire movie.
Oh my god!
So you would believe that she drugs them, and adding to the like crazed night that they're going through. But then for it to lead to nothing is just like, well, why? And just then, because you felt like you needed to give that character something to do towards the end.
Yeah, that's why it even made me think, like, was this a direction they were maybe going to go, like, and then they had to edit it? Yeah. So you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's how holy some of the things were. Because
so holy.
not the Jesus kind, the Swiss cheese kind.
What I would say is, thinking about it now, I don't know if she sees all of these people that she starts seeing before that scene, because that's the first scene I think that's the first scene. Okay, well, what we're talking about, like, is it a dream? Is it time travel? Is it reality? Like, is it the, like, not dimensions, because it's not getting that
blending of the past and the present,
reality of the present.
My thing, to best compare it to like what is going on is, like Nightmare on Elm Street. Is this like Nightmare on Elm Street where you dream something, but it still can come to you
the real
in
world.
real world, right?
Yeah.
I don't know what you would call that. I guess it would, in a weird way, it'd be breaking the fourth wall in a movie.
Yes.
So breaking the not literal fourth
Shattering
wall.
the glass, which is a big
Which
thing
actually
in this movie.
happened.
Yeah, and that in itself is like a giallo reference. Like what I love about those Italian movies is that there's always a character wearing black gloves with a knife, and they always punch through glass. They always come through the glass. It'll be a character walking around, and then 2 hands through the glass, choke them and pull them out. You're like, oh man, you don't give a fuck.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for that stuff. Too.
Yeah, that's good. That's classic.
So just having that reference of the glass actually shattering, and then you see the characters in the mirrors, the difference between Eloise and Sandy. That's like a big visual reference, thematic reference. Is just like mirrors and like what is reality and what is not reality, and that's where the movie starts to kind of go off the rails.
Right. It almost like shoved a whole nother, like you're talking about the ghost aspect of this movie in place of that.
Yeah.
Instead of explaining things, it just kind of pop that in.
Since we're talking about like how did I feel about how they handled the ending, I do have to say, even though I visually really like the ending,
The staircase scene is so
it's just,
cool.
It didn't hit. It didn't hit, and it wasn't like not a failed attempt, but they just didn't hit the mark on it.
I'm not gonna lie, like with the ending when Ellie basically told the person that they're okay with what they had done. It's so unbelievable to me.
Yeah,
I don't
because
really
wanna, let's not get too much into that. That's a huge spoiler for the
exactly.
movie.
But
you are correct.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're not gonna talk about who, but who tells a serial murderer like, hey, it's okay, those guys deserved it.
Like when honestly there was maybe one person that deserved it, and all these people were, if you've seen this movie, you know what we're talking about.
I think another heavy-handed message in this movie, which I don't know if it was intended, is sex is bad.
Yeah.
Which kind of just seems like this is like a very, man, these sirens, it really is a spooktacular today. I don't know if you can hear this, folks, but that's like the 3rd set of sirens that have gone off in like
Halloween weekend. Be safe this weekend, guys.
Be safe. Be safe with that witch's brew. But yeah, the ending felt so fumbled.
Yeah, I can see that. I definitely, like I said, I think it picked it up from the middle. The middle was just, to me, it was a whole lot of nothing, honestly.
I kept feeling like in the middle, I'm like, okay, let's just get to the end. Like, I'm ready for the ending of this. I understand what's going on. But overall, still solid.
And I don't know if that's just, I do think it, they were different. But the first act, like I just keep saying, it was so good. It was so good.
Rewatching it in the middle, I think my 2 favorite scenes from the middle were when they're dancing. So inside
those dance
when they're
sequences, those are amazing. Yeah.
And I told Gus this, like, there's this scene where Sandy's walking away from Jack, and I don't know, like the camera seems to tilt, like maybe to like I want to say like 40-degree angle, and she's like walking towards like the corner of like where the scene, and I just thought it looked really cool. It makes the hallway look extra long. It almost reminded me a little bit of a shot that would be in Scott Pilgrim, like where it's like they brought in a lot of like video game aspects, and those 2 were my favorite scenes. And it's like raining. There's a lot of the Soho's neon lights going on, and I thought that was something. But then that's when she starts tripping some more too. So I really liked, and because one of the things I like about Edgar Wright is the way that he does like zombies. Mm-hmm. So in this little segment, there's supposed to be ghosts. Kind of makes it look like they're zombies.
I want
like
to talk about these ghosts.
The way that they're talking, that they're walking. So that was my favorite scene from the middle. But everything besides that, I just kind of feel like it's integral to the story. But to me, it felt like it dragged.
I got you.
Let's talk about
the ghosties.
The ghosts. That's easily the worst part of the movie.
Yeah.
Visually, like they looked like shit.
Which, once again, like this is something like for this movie to have something it hit and then just to kind of go the opposite way. Like the first time you see these ghosts, you see one of them and you can't even really tell what it is, and that scene's really cool, and it was creepy, honestly. Like it creeped me out. Like the ghost is approaching and he's taking off his belt, and it was a cool scene. But then just to have like 7 or 8 more scenes with countless ghosts that look the same as this guy, it was just repetitive, and they didn't. I don't know. Any
of these fuckers ever come out of the wall?
Shout out, I think you should leave.
The answer is yes in this movie.
All the time.
Just more about like the plot holes and it not making sense. The ghost at the end really give you a sense of like, wait, what? Well, what?
That's my biggest
Yeah,
one.
right.
Yeah.
I like I said, I don't want to get into it too much without giving it away. I do recommend this movie, and this episode's actually going to drop on Halloween. So if you're listening to this now and it's Sunday Halloween, I would say pause this and go watch the movie, because if you're looking for something new to watch on Halloween and your choices are between Antlers, Last Night in Soho, and Halloween Kills, this is definitely the best of the bunch for Halloween.
It's a lot of fun. Go eat some candy, eat some popcorn. Like, it's a good time.
Maybe go a little not sober if that's what you're into, because this is a very trippy visual movie.
Yeah, it's cool.
Maybe pop a gummy or something like that. I'm not giving any advice here. I'm just saying,
Eat some candy.
Yeah, have some candy and check it for razor blades. Oh man, what do you guys think? Do you guys want to wrap this up?
Yeah, I think we should probably wrap. I'm getting close to spoiling things. Like, I keep catching myself.
And I do not want to spoil this movie, because I just think you can't really enjoy this movie if you know what's going to happen.
You don't want to know what's going to happen. Yeah.
I know we've done spoilers before, but this one, for sure, no spoilers.
Yeah.
Just go watch the movie. Enjoy the visuals. Enjoy the sound. See it in the biggest screen possible, right?
Yeah. I think, my take on this, go see this movie. It's super fun to see it in theaters if you have the chance. If not, you're not going to really miss a whole lot of anything.
But if you love 60s culture and 60s music, you're going to have a blast.
And like I said in the beginning, the whole 25 minutes, the surround sound kicks on. It's a really cool experience. It's the first time I've ever experienced that in the movie, so thought that was cool. Yeah, go into an open mind, have some fun.
Take a couple friends.
Let us know what you thought. Yeah, it's a good movie to go see with other people.
Like, talking more about like loving the 60s and specifically London in the 60s. I thought it was really cool how, because from the few stuff that I've learned in school about that time in like music history, the 60s was right before like hippie 70s, right? So I think it's really cool how Sandy, Anya Taylor's character, like when she's dancing, she dances like a hippie already. Like, it's the start of how girls dance for the hippies, but then guys were still dressed in suits. They didn't have the long hair yet. They were still stuck between the gentlemen of the 50s.
No, she's very like a trendsetter, you can tell.
And like I enjoyed that they really got down to like how maybe it's because I think she's attractive, but I thought the dancing was really cool. And I also thought it was really cool how Jack's character dances, because I guess as funny as this is, it reminds me, growing up here in Southern California, it reminds me how cholos dance. And that he's like kind of like he has a cigarette in his mouth, right?
Two-stepping.
And
He's doing
like
the least amount of dancing possible.
Exactly.
That scene that you're talking about, but just Edgar Wright showing his love for movie and references, you can't tell me that didn't kind of remind you of the Pulp Fiction.
That's exactly what reminded me. Right? It reminded me of that, and then it reminded me of Grease. Yeah, like
that's
both Travolta.
And the Grease is what got Quentin Tarantino to be like, oh, I think I want to get John Travolta to do it. So it's really funny that you say that, because it's just like a three-way connection there.
Okay, guys, I think we're gonna wrap it up. What should we code word here?
Oh man, how about, I don't know, Ghosty Boys?
Ghosty Boys? Sure, Ghosty Boys it is. If you've listened this far, DM us on Instagram, the Grand Cinema Hotel, and DM us Ghosty Boys. Oh wait, hold on.
No, one last thing. I just want to say, how many ghosts out of 5 do you give this movie?
Oh.
You know what? I'm gonna go 3 ghosts out of 5.
I'll do the same 3.
Okay, I went 3.5.
Always got to be different.
Respect.
No, I'm just kidding. Okay, so Ghost Boys on DM us, Grand Cinema Hotel. If you're watching this on YouTube, like and subscribe. Please share. Starting with the YouTube, getting more views than I thought we would.
Yeah,
on certain
shout out to everybody on YouTube. That's
sick.
Shout
out to the Teton episode.
Yeah,
it seems to be our best one so far. And that
for
was our
real.
First one. Hopefully, hopefully you guys are as excited about this movie as we were, and you have fun. Stay safe. Happy Halloween, everybody. And bye.
Bye. Happy Halloween.